Ever feel like you want to learn something new, maybe finally kick a bad habit, but it just seems like too much, like this huge mountain to climb?
Oh, definitely. We've all been there.
But maybe the real power isn't in these giant leaps. Maybe it's in the small stuff, the tiny changes we barely even notice.
That's exactly it. And today we're diving deep into, well, the principles behind how we build good habits and get rid of the ones that aren't serving us.
Right. We've been digging into the work of James Clear, pulling out the really key ideas for you.
The goal is to help you see the sort of hidden structure in your day-to-day routines and how you can actually change it.
Yeah, think of this as the express lane for you, the listener. If you want to get smart on this stuff without, getting totally lost in the details.
Our mission today, unpack the basics of habit change and give you some real practical tools you can use like right away.
Consider it your shortcut to figuring out this whole habit transformation thing.
Okay, so where do we start? Clear's whole framework kind of hangs on 4 big principles for building good habits.
4 principles. Okay, let's get into them. The first one is make it clear.
Make it clear, exactly. If you want a good habit to stick, the signal, the cue that starts it needs to be super obvious, hard to miss.
Like, wanting to read more.
Yeah, perfect example. Don't just think I should read more. Actually put the book on your pillow.
Ah, so it's right there. A visual cue.
Precisely. It cuts through the noise when you're winding down. Removes that what should I do now decision.
It's amazing how a tiny environmental tweak can shift your behavior.
Makes total sense. Out of sight, out of mind works both ways, huh? Okay, number 2.
Make it enticing. The more attractive a habit feels, the more likely you are to actually do it.
So tap into what we already want. Make it appealing.
Right. Sticking with reading, maybe you pair it with something you already enjoy, like having a really nice cup of tea while you read.
Ooh, creating a little ritual.
Exactly. You start linking reading with that cozy feeling. The brain connects them, making the reading itself feel good, even before you start.
Okay, I like that. Enticing. What's principle 3? Make it simple. New habits shouldn't feel like a massive chore, especially at first.
Keep it easy. Lower the barrier to entry.
You got it. That initial step needs to be almost ridiculously easy. Forget reading a whole chapter. Just one sentence, or maybe just opening the book.
Yeah.
It bypasses that overwhelmed feeling, makes it super easy to just begin. Those tiny wins build momentum.
Right. Okay. Clear, enticing, simple.
Yeah.
And the last one.
Make it enjoyable. We tend to repeat things that feel good. Positive reinforcement is key here.
So if you want to read more,
choose books you actually like. Sounds obvious, right? But picking something you're genuinely into makes the act itself rewarding. That intrinsic enjoyment often beats any external reward later on.
Okay, so those 4 build the good habits. What about breaking the bad ones? Does it just work in reverse?
Pretty much, yeah. You flip the script, make it disappear, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unrewarding.
Okay, let's use an example. That endless social media scrolling habit. How do we apply the reverse principles?
All right. First, make it disappear. Or, well, less visible.
Hide the app.
Could be. Or just move the icon off your main screen, put it in a folder, add a tiny bit of friction so it's not an automatic tap.
Got it. Step 2.
Yeah.
Make it unattractive.
Yeah, focus on the downside. Don't just scroll mindlessly. Pay attention to how you feel after. A bit drained, time wasted. Connect the action to that negative feeling.
Okay. Making the downsides conscious, then make it difficult.
Introduce more friction, like log out after every session. That extra step forces you to consciously decide to log back in. It breaks the automatic loop.
Adds a pause. And finally, make it unrewarding.
Yeah, interrupt that little dopamine hit it gives you. Maybe track the time you waste, then immediately do something fulfilling afterwards. Show your brain the contrast. The old habit starts to lose its shine when the reward fades and something better replaces it.
So we've got this framework, the 4 principles and their opposites. But you mentioned there's a step before all this.
Yeah.
Something foundational.
Absolutely. You can't skip this. It's awareness.
Awareness.
You just can't change what you don't even notice you're doing. Clear really hammers this home. Becoming consciously aware of your habits is step one.
And he suggests that habit scorecard thing, right? How does that work?
Yeah, the scorecard is simple but powerful. You basically list your daily routines, getting coffee, checking email, whatever. Then you just label each one, positive, plus, negative, or neutral.
So you just track everything.
You track it. The act itself shines a light on all those automatic things we do without thinking.
What kind of things might pop out when you do that?
You might realize, wow, I grab my phone way more often than I thought, or, that afternoon slump always follows that sugary drink. It forces you to see the reality of your pattern.
It's like getting an objective look at your day.
Exactly. And what's great is it helps you detach a bit. It's not about judging yourself, just collecting data. Seeing it laid out gives you a clear starting point, minus the guilt.
And it's not just self-observation. You mentioned something about Japanese railways, pointing and calling.
Yes. Pointing and calling. It's fascinating. Railway workers literally point at things, signals, gauges, and say out loud what they see. Signal is green.
They say it out loud.
Yep. And it sounds almost silly, but it drastically reduces errors. We're talking like up to 85% fewer mistakes, maybe 30% fewer accidents. It's huge.
Wow. How does that work? And how does it relate to my habit of, say, eating cookies?
It works because it forces conscious attention onto something usually automatic. It pulls an unconscious action into the conscious mind for a split second.
So for personal habits.
You could try verbalizing, I am now reaching for a cookie, or I am choosing to open social media. That tiny pause, that verbal acknowledgement creates a moment to decide if that's actually what you want to do.
Interesting. Making the unconscious conscious. Okay, so awareness is checked. We get the 4 principles. How do we actually start building the good habits?
Right, moving from knowing to doing. Clear gives us some really practical strategies. 2 big ones are implementation intentions and habit stacking.
Implementation intention. Sounds a bit technical. Break it down.
It's basically just a super specific plan. The format is, I will behavior at time and location.
An if-then plan for your habit.
Exactly. You're pre-deciding when and where. It links the action to really clear cues in your environment. Takes the guesswork out.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say you want to meditate. Instead of just, I'll meditate more, your implementation intention would be, I will meditate for 5 minutes at 7 a.m. in my living room.
Specific behavior, time, and place.
Right. So when 7 a.m. hits and you're in the living room, that plan kicks in like a mental reminder, makes it way more likely you'll actually do it.
Okay, that makes sense. Sets a clear trigger. What about habit stacking? Sounds like building blocks.
That's exactly what it is. You link a new habit, you want to start with one you already do consistently.
Piggybacking on an existing routine.
Precisely. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit. You use the completion of the old habit as the cue for the new one. Leverages pathways already built in your brain.
Gotcha. Give us an example of stacking.
Okay, maybe you always make coffee first thing in the morning. That's your established habit.
Right.
You could stack by saying, after I pour my first cup of coffee, I will take my daily vitamin. Making coffee triggers taking the vitamin. Simple link.
Finding those natural connections in your day. Okay, but what if the new habit still feels big? Even with a plan. I know Clear mentions the 2-minute rule.
The 2-minute rule. It's brilliant for just getting started, for beating that initial inertia.
How does it work?
The idea is any new habit you're trying to build should take less than 2 minutes to start.
Yeah.
Just the very first step.
So you're not aiming for the full habit immediately.
Not at all. You're just making it incredibly easy to begin.
Yeah.
The focus is purely on showing up. Getting the ball rolling.
Example.
Want to become a runner. The 2-minute version is just putting on your running shoes. Want to write a book? 2 minutes is writing 1 sentence. Want to read more? Just open the book.
Make the starting point almost laughably small.
Exactly. It feels so easy, there's no reason not to do it. And often, once you've started, even that tiny bit, you've got momentum to keep going.
Breaking down big goals into tiny first steps, okay? And we can't talk habits without talking about our surroundings, right? Environment matters.
Oh, massively. It's often underestimated how much our environment shapes what we do. You know Kurt Lewin's idea?
Remind me.
Behavior is a function of a person and their environment. Our context is constantly nudging us.
So we need to design our environment deliberately to support the good habit.
Absolutely. Make the cues for good habits obvious and easy. Make the cues for bad habits invisible or hard.
Like
Want to eat more fruit? Keep a fruit bowl on the counter right in sight. Trying to avoid junk food. Get it out of the house or at least hide it away.
makes sense. What about focus?
Turn off phone notifications. That's classic environment design to reduce distractions. Make the path of least resistance lead towards what you want to do.
It's interesting. It seems like people with really strong self-control aren't just gritting their teeth all the time.
That's a key insight. Often, they're just better at designing their environment to avoid temptation in the first place. They're not using more willpower, they're using less because they've set themselves up for success. They play offense with their surroundings.
Playing offense, I like that. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What's going on inside our heads? The brain science.
Yeah, so habits are basically energy savers for the brain. They run on autopilot, and the reward system is crucial.
Dopamine.
Dopamine is the big player. When you do something that feels rewarding, your brain releases dopamine. That reinforces the connection, makes you want to do it again. It strengthens that cue routine reward loop until it's automatic.
Which brings us to temptation bundling. How does that hack the system?
Temptation bundling is clever. You link something you want to do with something you should do.
Like pairing things up.
Exactly. You use the enjoyable thing as a bribe, almost, for the habit you're trying to build.
Give us an example of bundling.
Okay, say you love listening to a certain podcast, but you struggle to exercise.
Yep, sounds familiar.
You could make a rule: I only get to listen to my favorite podcast while I'm working out. The podcast becomes the immediate reward for exercising. It makes the workout itself more appealing.
Stacking rewards.
Okay.
That makes sense. Now, habits don't happen in isolation, right? What about other people, our social circles?
Huge influence. We're social creatures. We have this deep desire to belong, so we naturally tend to pick up the habits of the groups we're part of. The norms become our norms.
So, if you want to, say, run more.
Joining a running group can be incredibly powerful. You're suddenly surrounded by people for whom running is normal. It provides support, encouragement, and makes the behavior feel more natural for you too. Social contagion works for good habits.
But I guess the flip side is true too. Negative influences.
Absolutely critical point. If you're trying to quit smoking, hanging out constantly with smokers makes it infinitely harder. You need to be mindful of who you spend time with and whether they support the changes you want to make. Choose your tribe wisely, you know.
Makes sense. Choose environments and people that align with your goals. Okay, one last thing you mentioned was deliberate practice. How's that different from just repeating a habit?
Good question. Repetition builds the habit, makes it automatic, but deliberate practice keeps it effective and helps you improve.
How so?
It's about staying engaged. Not just going through the motions, but paying attention, seeking feedback, looking for small ways to get better. Are there blind spots? Can I refine this? It stops habits from becoming stale or mindless. You keep learning and adapting.
So constant improvement, even within a habit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wrap this up. As we finish this deep dive, what are the absolute must-remember takeaways for our listener?
I think the core message is focus on small, consistent actions. They really do compound. Think systems, not just goals. And try to align your habits with the kind of person you want to be.
And remember those 4 keys. Make it clear, make it enticing, make it simple, make it enjoyable. Or flip them to break bad habits.
Exactly. Use the practical tools, implementation intentions that I will hide, habit stacking link, new to old. And the 2-minute rule, just start.
Don't forget designing your environment. Make good cues obvious, bad cues hidden. Play offense.
And understand the power of rewards, that dopamine loop, and how your community shapes you. Temptation bundling, finding supportive groups, it all helps.
Basically, it's all about those atomic habits, right? Tiny changes, massive results over time.
Precisely. Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. Right now, what's just one tiny habit, maybe based on something we talked about, that you could start immediately? Just one small thing. How could focusing on that tiny system, that atomic shift, maybe lead to bigger growth than you even expect? What's that first small